Good morning, Zaina.
Good morning. How do?
Wow. All right. Good morning, team. And in some cases, good evening. We're going to get started in another 20 seconds or so. I've shared today's agenda in the Zoom chat, as well as we have it in our instructional design sprint channel as well. Just make sure you can access it. All right. And while we're waiting, I'm going to share my screen and can ask a few people to read some things. Let's see. All right, so Jake, I'm going to ask if you can read the definition of a superstar instructional designer, please.
24/7 superstar instructional designer, an instructional designer eagerly sought after for exceptional talent, problem solving, adaptability, initiative, mentorship, dedication, assertiveness, and community building skills.
Yes. And so that is our work today in every meeting to build you all into being superstar instructional designers. Definitely thank you for that. And let's see. Actually, I will read the community vision. This is also very important. To lead and foster a community of superstar instructional designers celebrated for revolutionizing education and human development by eradicating rigid, passive, non-inclusive, and irrelevant learning practices. All right, so just keep that in mind as someone may ask you in an interview process, like, what is your purpose or your mission or your core values around what you do as an instructional designer, right? So definitely feel free to take that, but more importantly, think about what your vision is as an instructional designer as well, okay? All right. And now we are going to check in. And if we can, as we usually do, just check in on a scale of 1 to 10 in the chat. And you can see today's check-in question. And let's see. David, I'm going to ask if you can read the check-in question, please.
All right, check-in question. Just get this out the way here. Reflecting on this week's insights into performance and accountability, rate your current work situation on a scale of 1 to 10 regarding how accountable your team members are for achieving specific results. Provide a detailed explanation for your rating.
All right, thank you for that. So team, as you are checking in, I want you to think about that. In terms of the explanation, you don't have to give names or anything of that nature. You don't have to be very specific, but do want you just to explain your why behind your rating, okay? So take a moment to think about that. And as we're checking in, we're going to call on Natalie. Natalie, you're going to be the first person to answer the question, okay? So take your think time as much as you need and get started when you're ready.
Okay, so in response to the check-in question, I would give it a 8.5. Why not a 10? That's where my mind runs to. Like, why isn't it a 10? Because I think in terms of accountability, perhaps there was a gap in accountability and submission of the output. Like, I think a mistake that was made was that there was no assigned person to submit the questions, for example, in my team. I mean, I could have easily done it, but then I forgot, and then there was no one
Well,
assigned.
well, hold on a
So,
second, Natalie. Natalie, this is about your current work situation. So your
oh,
job.
oh, it's in my job.
Yeah, your job.
Oh, isn't like I thought my team. Like, isn't
No.
that part of like that's my work as well? No.
Yes, but specifically your day-to-day job, what you do
Thank you.
in your community.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Then it's 8.5 is not the answer then. It's 42. No, I'm joking. It's okay, so I'm not the only one who misunderstood. Thank you for making me feel less ashamed. Okay. So I would give it like a 5. Again, why not a 10? I feel like the school is lucky to hire like responsible people, and that's why it's working. But in terms of missed deadlines or like deadlines, no one's like accountable because there's also no one assigned. Actually, yeah, it's the same problem. Yeah, like for sure. Okay, I'm gonna be so vulnerable and honest right now, but like I missed my deadline by like 5 days because I knew that I wouldn't get into trouble. And no one was gonna shout at me for missing a deadline, and it wasn't that important. So I feel like I wasn't the only one, but I talked to a colleague and he also said, yeah, actually, I also missed my deadline because no one was going to shout at me. And I was like, oh my God. So there are people who are in the same boat as me. And I think like when it comes to like student comments and things like that, like these are important administrative goals. So someone should be held accountable. And I think this is just a school culture. That the mess is what we thrive in, and then like if something good happens, we shout in celebration, and then when something goes wrong, it's like it's okay, we're not dead. So it's horrible. I know. So it's a 5. Thank you. I am complete. Anybody else wants to share? Now I want to hide my face.
Oh,
Okay.
Natalie, don't feel bad. I literally was thinking the same exact thing, and I was over here thinking hard, like, okay, let's see.
Okay. Cool. Misha, why don't I pass it to you?
Okay, cool. Let's see. So I guess mine is a little tricky because I feel like I work oftentimes in like a silo, even though we're not supposed to feel like that. But I'm 100% remote at this point, and a lot of what I do doesn't depend on my. I don't rely on my team for anything. They rely on me, and I get the job done. So that's that's what that is. So I think I'm gonna talk about my manager instead, and I would rate that a 7 out of 10. And I would say, um, for the most part, I feel like the communication and the follow-up, sometimes there are tasks that are communicated as if they are a priority for me to do for the wider audience, I guess, or group, but there's a lack of follow up with her. Then I'm like, okay, well, is it not a priority? And then there's a lack of clarity, I guess, And then that just creates confusion, and I'm always trying to over communicate to make sure we stay aligned on, the task at hand, and that sometimes gets frustrating for me. And we have this assessment we take at my job called Valence. Has anyone ever heard of a Valence assessment? So basically, you take this assessment to learn about like your working style, your personality style, and your whole team takes it and you can kind of see how everyone works. And when I look at my manager's profile, it says that she's like an abstract thinker and communicator. And I think that's the disconnect because when she's talking, I don't the message is never clear to me. I'm like, what are you actually saying? And so I have to constantly ask for clarity. And so that just creates a lot of confusion and gaps in my understanding. So that may not have answered the question completely, but that's all I really have to share on that because again, my team and I don't work that closely together, especially over the past like month or so. And I'm complete. And I will pass it to Shayla.
Morning, everyone. I'm checking in at an 8. I think I'm pretty new in my current role. I've been in my current role for about 3 months. But I would say I would probably also go with a 7. I think there is a really good structure. The person at the top is also new, so there's a little bit of disconnect with that, being a new person in the principal role. And there's also a really big disconnect between the employees because it's an international school. And so some teachers are local and some teachers are international, and that sometimes can create a divide because there is a little bit of an imbalance between what's expected of certain people and what the reward for that is, depending on what kind of hire you are. I'm complete. I will pass it back to Justice.
All right, thank you, team. So just a quick reminder, as an expectation around effective communication and just us being together as a community, when we're here in class, please turn on your camera, okay? So again, it is an expectation because we cannot have effective communication and we cannot necessarily build community if we can't see each other. And obviously we won't be able to physically feel each other, but we can feel each other's vibes if we can see each other. So we do ask team members to turn on your camera, so please make sure that you do so, okay? All right, and definitely want to thank you for that. And the reason why that question is important is because for educators, you are not necessarily trained with the right mindsets and frameworks to be accountable to results. Now they say it, so you're accountable to test results, but as an educator, in many cases, you are accountable to processes. All right. And the structure of education, in many cases, you are not penalized for not necessarily meeting results, where in the corporate world, you are. And so that's why it's a major shift and it's a different mindset from being an educator in a classroom versus working in a corporate position, because you are held accountable for your results. Okay. Now, depending on how good the organization is, if it's a really high functioning organization, your results are going to be in front of you all the time. Okay. Now, if it's a low functioning organization and it's mid-tier in terms of its results, not so much. But at the end of the day, we talk about ROI. Okay. So you always hear us talk about return on investment. You are an investment, because when you're focused on delivering training and education, you are not necessarily driving sales, right? So you are a support versus driving a specific outcome. So you have to make sure that your effectiveness in what you do in terms of your analysis and your communication and the outputs that you create, could be job aids, could be training, it could be training manuals, you are delivering high levels of performance you are supporting high levels of accountability, and that will provide high levels of ROI or return on investment. Okay, because you are an investment for that organization. So as an educator, I want you to start thinking about how can you bring accountability in your current workplace, or if you're not an educator, think about how you can bring accountability in your workplace. Okay, you may not necessarily need to hold people accountable, but you need to ensure that there's accountability around you. All right. And that's not always in saying, hey, you didn't do something. That could be making sure that what is asked of you is clear and there's a deadline. Because in many times you may be given something to do and you're not told when to do it or at what rate or level to do it. So accountability is not just in saying, hey, you didn't do this. It's making sure that you understand with clarity what you're supposed to do, when it is due, and how it is due. Okay, so I'm asking you as team members to really start driving accountability within your current work situation, because that will help you be ready for when you have that corporate position or when you're working with a corporate client. You will know how to operate and you will know what value to bring to them. Okay, so it's a very, very, very important point of view to take and to have. Okay, all right. So now we're going to move on to celebrations. So this is a time where we celebrate our wins, our struggles, our failures, which are not really failures until we quit. We're here to celebrate our community and all things that has happened to us and what we've learned from. Okay, all right. So remember, the cadence is I have a celebration, and what are we going to say?
Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate.
Oh man, okay, we gotta do that again. What are we gonna say?
Celebrate,
Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate.
Okay. All right. So who has a celebration? Who has something they want to celebrate? A failure, a win, a struggle. Who has something they want to celebrate this week? And I do have a few ideas on who I can call on as well. Lovely. So you have a celebration.
I have a celebration.
Celebrate,
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 celebrate.
celebrate.
Okay, so the celebration is my struggle actually. So this week marked my first week of my contract job, and I struggled with onboarding. So I divide onboarding in two parts. I'm like, one part is like where you're just settling up your laptop and your emails, and you know knowing who is in the team, who to reach in the admin department when you're having issues. And the second onboarding part is when you're learning about project, right? So I struggled with the first part. So I was supposed to start the job on Monday, but on Monday, nobody has reached me out. Like, I didn't know what meeting am I attending, who is my manager. I didn't know anything. I have not even received my system because it's a remote job. So I have not received any system, nothing. So on Monday, I call my recruiter, and then she gives me a number who is supposed to be my manager. And I call her and I'm like, hey, this is Lovely, and I'm supposed to be in your team and blah blah blah. So she was like, okay, let me check my email. She checked her emails and she was like, oh yeah, I have received an email, but I didn't check it. All that happened. So finally on Wednesday, I received my system. But then again, the new problem is when I start the system, it asks me the PIN, and I have not been given any PIN, which again I think is a bad thing. Like, you're giving me a system, give me all the details I need to log in. So then I call again the IT people. Now I don't have the information about IT people. Who do I contact? So I contact to the recruiter and somehow I get the IT person number, and then we figure it out. Then the third thing is they give me my corporate email ID, and it was an email ID, but I was not told if it's a Google ID, if it's a Microsoft Team ID or what. So I just naturally log in into Google, but I can't log in. Then I realize it's actually a Microsoft Office email ID. So then I somehow do that, and finally I was able to log in. Now I didn't know what is the communication platform, if it's Slack, if it's Discord, or what it is. So myself, I figured it out that the communication platform is actually Microsoft Teams and Outlook and all those things. So many loopholes. Finally, on Thursday, I was like, I attended my first 9 a.m. meeting, which was like a group meeting, status update, and all those things. And Thursday and Friday, Thursday, I was given my training plans and all those things. And when I was given my trainings, I realized that my system does not have MS Word within the system, because this company, like, they don't use the online versions. They're like, you need to have it in your system. I didn't have it. Then again, I reached out to the IT people and I was like, I don't have it. They were like, we can't do anything, you better raise a ticket. But I'm like, I don't know how to raise a ticket. So I reached out to my manager. So she was like, okay. So it's been 1 week and I have done nothing because I don't have all the tools with me. So I was so irritated, like I can't even explain. So I was talking to Zain. So this was my struggle. So I was talking to Zaina and I was just crying over it. So she was like, there is a way you can convert the struggle into an opportunity. So you are seeing some gaps in their onboarding. And as an instructional designer, that's your job. Like, how do you provide the solutions? So you see the gaps in their onboarding. So we sat together and we're like, and she was like, maybe you can come up with a job aid or something like that, and maybe the pitch to them that, hey, you better have this for your future employees and things like that. I was like, yeah. So that's what happened. And actually, big celebration to Zaina, because she actually, told me how you can convert a struggle into an opportunity. And now I also have some content for my LinkedIn, because somehow I can post my experience in a LinkedIn post, which I'm sure would be helpful to other people. So I'm complete.
Wow,
And
that's big. That's big. Well, team, just so you know, the struggles that you face in our organization through our boot camp, they're on purpose. So you're ready to deal with situations like that and not, I don't want to say freak out, but know how to handle it and know what to do. And shout outs to you, Zaina, for that insight as well, because ultimately, when you're working with the organization, doesn't mean that it's, as I said before, when you're working in the corporate world, doesn't mean the grass is greener, it's just different. Okay, and you may have organizations that their processes are not in place, and it is an opportunity for you. Okay, definitely an opportunity. Misha, so we'll pass it to you. Do you have a celebration or you have a comment?
Celebration.
Oh, okay, so can you say it again so we can get ready?
I have a celebration.
Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate.
Thank you. So mine is not anything big, but for me, I am celebrating that the last day of my work at the company I'm currently at is November 30th. So in a couple of more weeks. And I've kind of been in limbo for a while, not knowing, like, is it really the last day? But my manager sent like a transition farewell email connect for the 27th. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's official. Again, the communication is not that great. So the fact that that is what let me know it's official is ridiculous, but it is official. And I feel like this role, I've been in it for 18 months as a contractor. And by the way, after leaving the classroom in 2022, all of my roles have been contract roles on purpose. I actually prefer contract roles at this point in my life, but this was an 18-month contract, and it had its ups and downs. I started as a facilitator, only facilitating online, then it transitioned into in-person and online, and then it transitioned into facilitator and program manager. So I've got a lot of experience within the role, had its ups and downs, but I've been ready for a change. And it just feels good to know, like, okay, this is actually coming to an end. I'm closing this chapter. I'm making room for new opportunities that, in my opinion, better align with what I want No more dealing with unclear communication. And hopefully I don't have to deal with that going forward, but you never know. But yeah, I'm just celebrating this because I feel like it's a step toward me prioritizing myself, prioritizing my growth, my wants, and just finding the role that actually energizes me and makes me feel happy to get up and do the work every day. So I am celebrating new beginnings and leaving behind what no longer serves me. So I am complete.
Congratulations, Misa.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else has a celebration? Let's see. I can call on somebody, but Zaina, go ahead.
So I'm working with my nephew actually on marketing for the instructional design program. And I do not have marketing experience. So it's really been cool. The nice thing is it helps me to think about our program in a different way. Thinking about the things that we do, the things that you guys say, that everyone experiences, that is really special that we can share with others. So that's helped me to kind of think about that. And we set kind of an audacious goal of creating a certain number of posts. We felt like just short of the number of drafts. We wanted to do like 15 in a couple days, got 13. And yeah, so I was proud of that and wanted to celebrate.
Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate.
Celebrate, celebrate.
Yeah, I forgot
All
that.
right.
Jim. Sorry, guys.
So audacious goals are the life spirit of what you need to do. I'll say it that way. When you have an audacious goal, that means you have to put in audacious effort to meet it, and that's where your growth comes in. So congratulations, Dana. All right, so now we're going to move on to our exercises for today. We're going to focus on our reading. For many of you, you've read this particular reading, and it is on action mapping, and it involves, you may hear me speak to Anna and Tina. But given what you've gone through over the past 3.5 weeks, you may have a different lens in how you see what's actually happening in the reading. Okay, so for those of you who have already read this, when we come back and we speak to takeaways, I want you to speak to something new or something you saw differently based on your experiences with HPT, the 5 whys, the what if frameworks, the BME framework. See if there is something different or a new insight that you gained, right, from doing this previous work to what you read. And for our new team members who've never read this, just want to hear your general takeaways. Okay, so that's how we're going to frame it. So we're going to put 12 minutes on the timer. Right? I am going to give you some extra time, and I'm going to ask when you finish reading, just put a 1 in the chat, and that's going to let me know how many people are ready to move on. Okay, and when we get to everyone, regardless of the time, we're going to move on. Okay, so please put a 1 in the chat after you finish reading, and when everyone has done so, that's when we're going to move on. All right, any questions on what we're going to do next? All right. Let's see, Jake, what am I asking you to do in terms of the chat?
When we are finished reading, we put a 1 in the chat.
Yes, okay. And I'm gonna just quickly share my screen so you can see where you can find the reading and the agenda right here. And we're just reading part 1, okay? We're just reading part 1. All right, and
Justice,
I'm
I'm
going-
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Justice. You said we're reading part 1 and we are going to share a key takeaway. Did you say something else that we're doing as well?
Yes, so you're going to share a key takeaway. If you've already read it, just something new based on your work that you've done over the past 3 weeks, okay? So new insights or a new way of seeing something based on the work that we've done over the past 3 weeks, if you've already read it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And that was a great question. So again, I'm going to put the timer on, and you're just putting a 1 in the chat when you are finished reading. So feel free to turn off your camera, do whatever you need to do to concentrate, and we'll come back when everyone is complete or the timer is done. Hey, Norberto, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. So if you can access the agenda, it's in the Sprint channel.
Okay, got
And
it.
we are currently reading the reading resource, which you'll find on the second page of the agenda. And for you, I want you to think about a new insight that you have in reading the action mapping situation with Anna and Tina. So you're reading it and you're looking for any new insights or new way of seeing something based on the work that we've done over the past 3 weeks, okay?
Okay, got it.
All right,
Only part one right now.
yes, part one.
Okay.
All right, team, it seems like not everyone is complete, so we're gonna give it another 2 minutes, okay? So take an additional 2 minutes to finish reading. And if you have, I want you to think about the new insights that you have looking back at this based on what we've done over the past 3 weeks. All right, team, so let's come on back. And want to quickly hear takeaways. So who wants to volunteer a takeaway? Misha?
Here to go first because I read this early on when I first joined with you actually, Justice. And well, one takeaway is that I didn't realize that Tina, T for traditional, haha, Anna, A for action. So basically I was reflecting on the last project and I realized that I've been a lot like Tina. I feel like I'm very thorough in the work that I do. I make sure, everything is covered. And I think that's good. But what I'm learning is that it's obviously not about just making sure people know stuff. It's about making sure that they can do what it is that you need them to do. So moving forward, I think that I need to really focus on like the actions that folks need to take and asking questions like Anna, like what do they need to do right now? What's the goal? What is the impact that needs to be had? And also making sure that they can actually apply it to the real world, not just a checklist of like, okay, I learned that I aced the assessment. So I'm just learning that I need to balance that. Like I can be thorough, I can be, thoughtful, but I also need to make sure that my work is action oriented or I have that mindset so that I can ask the right questions. So I'm complete. And I will pass it to, I don't know who had their hand up first, so I'm just going to go. Natalie, were you saying something? Oh, Brooke. I think you're saying Brooke, so I'm gonna go to Brooke.
Yeah.
This is my second reading as well. And my first reading was when I first really entered the project or the program, maybe like my first month. And what stuck out to me the most in the second reading is her tenacity to continue to ask the question why, which did eventually lead to her identifying the root cause of this hospital's issues with this particular problem. Tina didn't ask. She didn't identify the root cause. She just produced a course that she was expected to produce. So by, employing these techniques that we've been learning about the last couple of weeks, like asking the whys, trying to identify the root cause, and then also just proving that her approach did bring about the desired results, therefore prompting what was it, the director of the hospital, whoever, I can't remember who she was, Harold, to find additional funding to continue her work. She proved that her methods were effective, bringing about the strongest return on investment she possibly could to that particular project and issue. And now she has more value in the company and is getting more projects, or they're increasing the funding for her to continue her work. And I'm complete. And I will pass it to Natalie.
Thanks, Brooke. For me, the main thing that stood out from was the question, why are the people not doing this? That is such a simple question that I don't have a habit of asking. I just assume and I get into the heads of these people, like, oh yeah, if I were a nurse, oh yeah, if I were a janitor, oh yeah, if I were blah, right? But like, they not me, and I'm not in the job. So like, I have to ask, like, why are they not doing it? I can't assume. So that's something that is gonna stick with me after this rereading. Like, this is the 4th time I'm reading it. I'm still taking things away. All right, I'm complete. I will pass it to Madeline.
Thank you, Natalie. I have also read this multiple times, and I think like what really stood out to me this go around too is that while Anna was asking all of her why questions, it was not only bringing about like helpful information for her, but also it was bringing new things to light. Like, for example, like not having like the biohazard box like next to the patient's bed when Harold thought that they were in their locations, but through just deep analysis of asking why, he was like, oh, I didn't even realize that this problem was happening. I didn't realize they weren't in their right location. And so that was something that he could go in and have fixed very quickly by having them placed on the wall. So I think like not only is the why analysis so helpful for us in developing and helping solve problems, but also it's bringing new problems to light that can be fixed very simply just by bringing them up and making them known. But I'm complete, and I'm going to pass to Marissa.
Can you pass it back to me? Because we have to move on. We're going to have another time to share in our reading number 2. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to presentation. So we're going to break it up to where we're going to read, we're going to discuss, we're going to present. So we're going to do one presentation and we're going to have another reading and we're going to have another discussion after that. So let's see, who's ready to present? Who's ready to present? Which team? All right, so Team Misha, Brooke, David. You got it. Oh yeah, and Marissa.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of get it over with.
Well, don't say that in a job interview.
Okie doke. I'm gonna actually share my screen because I'm gonna just have like a couple of slides to walk us through. Okay. So my group is presenting on addressing key challenges at Riverside Charter School. And first of all, before I begin, can everyone see my screen? Just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So just to remind everyone of the purpose, we were exploring Riverside's challenges and prioritizing interventions for the greatest impact on the environment, morale, performance, and involvement using the 80-20 rule. So the key challenges and root causes that we've identified are teacher burnout was one of the key challenges. And based on the data, teacher burnout and retention issues at Riverside were or are driven by excessive workloads, insufficient support structures, and a lack of relevant professional development. And then we have inconsistent behavior management as another key challenge. And we said the root cause of inconsistent behavior management is the lack of administrative follow through on adapting and enforcing the behavior policy. And then lastly, we had declining parental engagement as our third key challenge. And we said, based on the data, the root cause of this is the absence of what we would call a cohesive and structured engagement mechanism or program, which resulted in inconsistent communication with the parents, limited involvement opportunities, and also a lack of trust and collaboration between the parents and school. So from there, we identified the top 3 interventions. And so for teacher burnout, we said coming up with a comprehensive training program for workload management and classroom efficiency would be the top intervention here, because we believe that this will give teachers the training they need in order to use practical tools, maybe Google Classroom, PowerSchool, etc., in order to manage tasks that have a higher burden, also directly addressing the main issue for burnout. For behavior management, we identified a performance improvement plan, or a PIP, for the administration, because as I mentioned earlier, there has been a lack of accountability and administrators need to consistently enforce the behavior policy and support teachers in using it effectively. And lastly, for parental engagement, we said that a comprehensive parental engagement program would be the top intervention here, because it directly addresses inconsistent communication and the lack of structured opportunities for parents to engage. Now, after compiling those top 3 interventions, we decided on what would be the top intervention using the 80-20 rule. And we chose the performance improvement plan, or PIP, for administration because we believe it directly tackles the foundational challenges that are impacting both the academic performance and the school operations. And so in a nutshell, we believe that the PIP is going to ensure administrators, again, are consistently enforcing the behavior policy, which will and should create a stable and supportive environment for the teachers. And also, just to add, this consistency, or having this consistency, is going to also be really important for minimizing or reducing the classroom disruptions, but also improving the classroom culture so teachers can, thrive more in that environment. And also, by reducing the behavior disruptions, the PIP is also supporting student achievement. It's lowering teacher stress, as I mentioned, and it's going to improve retention, which all are going to contribute to a healthier, more collaborative school culture. And I'm going to stop sharing. I am complete. And I don't know if we are just moving on to the next person, Justice, or we're waiting, taking questions.
No, you are going to take questions, so we have a few minutes left. So does anyone have any questions for Team Misha, Brooke, David, and Marissa?
Right.
Okay. All right. So thank you for that, Misha. And let's see, who's our next team? Who would like to go?
You're on mute. Just
Volunteer someone. Let's see, Team Shayla and Madeline.
Hi,
Okay.
Justin.
Madeline, would you like me to share the screen or have you got it?
Yes, if you don't mind. Thank you, Shayla.
No problem. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Perfect. Awesome. So, good morning, everybody. In my team, it was me, it was Katie and Shayla. And we took a closer look at some of the problems that to help improve Riverside Charter School. And we selected some interventions that I'm going to talk to you guys about. Okay, Shayla, we can go to the next one. So to figure out the best interventions, we used multiple different types of analysis, but we used the 5 why and the what if frameworks to get to the bottom of the issues. At first, we focused on really some of the surface level challenges, like the heavy teacher workloads and the classroom disruptions and the lack of communication with parents. But as we look closer, we realized that some of the real problems were a lot deeper than that. We realized that there were things like lack of accountability, unclear metrics, and not enough support for the teachers and the leaders. So by breaking down the issues and refining our analysis, we moved from just treating some of the symptoms to treating more of things on like the foundational level. And along the way, we did have some challenges. So to begin with, we really, we focused more on tackling some of the problems directly without really asking a lot of the whys that we needed to ask to find some of these root problems. But as we took a deeper dive into the analysis portion and really analyzed the data, we were able to ask some more questions and find some of the gaps that we had in our initial approach. So from there, we identified some of the key players and like those responsible for the behavior management, some of the teacher support, and some of the people responsible for the lack of parent communication. So this helped us better align our interventions with leadership, accountability, and make sure that our solutions, because we identified these people, were realistic and sustainable over time, rather than just tackling the problems that were handed to us. Okay, Shayla, I'm ready for the next one. So now I'm going to go into the 3 interventions that we chose.
Right, Madeline, hold on 1 second. Shayla, do you mind putting the presentation that you're sharing in present mode? There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. So we came up with 3 interventions. The very first one was we recommend giving the superintendent clear metrics to improve behavior management, instructional quality, and parent engagement. This would include an actionable plan and an accountability framework that gets reviewed and updated regularly to track progress. The second one that we chose was we suggested implementing automated tools and trainings for staff to monitor behavior trends, improve communication, and reduce teacher workloads. These tools will help people work more effectively and make sure that teachers' lives are a little easier by cutting down the administrative tasks. Addressing these 2 issues is a crucial point for really just improving instructional quality overall. But we also felt like that it was important for us to also support teachers while also helping with these 2 issues that were at hand. So for our third intervention, we wanted to make sure that teachers were supported by creating a centralized resource bank. And this would give them access to shared lesson plans, templates, instructional tools, and saving them on time, really, to help them focus on teaching. But the reason why we chose this order is we figured that the first intervention was really our top priority because it lays the foundation for everything else. So if we make sure that the foundation is sound, then we can move forward with the rest. So by focusing on leadership and accountability and making sure that that operation system was strong, we can create a structure that the structures needed to improve behavior, instruction, and engagement. And with that in place, our other interventions have a bigger impact and are more sustainable over time. I'm ready, Shayla.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the 3 of the main data points that led us to this root cause. So the first one was 45 minutes daily of classroom disruptions, and paired with the fact that classrooms that have fewer than 10 monthly incidents show a 10% higher student achievement. We also focused on the fact that teachers are working 50 to 55 hours weekly, and this is largely due to administrative tasks that don't have any automation or support to sort of get those hours down. And then lastly, that 25% of parents respond to school communications and only 60% of those are satisfied. So this really helped us identify the root cause, as the superintendent has not put a clear structure in place to identify, track, and measure the relevant metrics for whole school improvement because they don't have the skills to do so. So there was a point of data that mentioned that the superintendent had a plan to implement some automated tools, but they weren't sure how. So for that reason, we wanted to start with building leadership accountability and focusing on skills first. So giving the right people the right metrics in order to improve behavior, in order to improve instructional quality, and in order to see a rise in parent engagement. On top of that, we would need to train senior leaders to use data-driven methods to improve operational efficiency. So making sure that they are able to look at data, analyze it, pinpoint things, and evaluate trends. And also to provide a framework for accountability so the right people, so that specific people are in charge of monitoring this. In conjunction with that, we would be implementing metrics-driven systems and focusing on outcomes over processes. So we want to implement a system that would track behavior incidents and trends, automated tools to reduce teacher administrative workloads. We would be monitoring and evaluating this regularly according to the accountability framework, and also reviewing this monthly with self-assessments for leadership linked to measurable outcomes. And that is all we have. We are complete.
Shayla and Madeline, in terms of just your overall or your first intervention that you're going to focus on, what is that?
Our first, sorry, you can go, Shayla.
We're looking at making that. So making sure that the right people who are in charge of specific metrics know what those metrics are and that they are accountable to enforcing them.
Okay. So establishing metrics and holding them accountable to those metrics. Got it. Okay. Okay. And let's see, team, now we're going to move on to our part 2, our reading part 2. Does anyone have any questions for Madeline or Shayla? Anyone have any questions? Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to our reading. So if everyone and Team Natalie, you all are going to have your opportunity to present after we finish the reading, okay? Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask if you can pull up Action Mapping Part 2. Okay, and I am going to give you 10 minutes to read. And again, if you are finished, please put a 1 in the chat, okay? And when you are finished, please put a 1 in the chat and we will get started when everyone has finished. All right? Feel free to turn off your camera as mentioned before so you can focus, and we'll come back when everyone is done or the timer is up. Team, if you are finished, please think through your takeaways, okay? If you are finished, please think through your takeaways. Again, team, if you're finished, please put a 1 in the chat. If you are finished reading, you haven't done so, please put a 1 in the chat. All right, team, we have about 8 more seconds to go. So please come on back. All right. So what were your takeaways? And Marissa, I know you had your hand up from previously, so we'll start with you. And you can speak to your takeaway or insight from your previous reading, as well as something you took away from this current reading as well.
Sure. So my takeaways last time actually were similar to Misha. I realized just how stuck on Tina I am, or how I'm stuck as a Tina, I suppose. And I feel like this exercise or this sprint really exposed that. I could really not get beyond, like, it's hard to start asking the right questions. So while reading that article the first time with you, Justice, I was like, oh yeah, definitely Anna's more, that's better. But you know, I'm stuck on that. But also when Madeline was speaking, I believe, and she said, like, why aren't people doing this? It made me think of our fire drill posters that are in our classroom, and it tells you what stairwell to leave out of. And I've never paid attention to that. I just leave and I go out the way that I go out. I mean, whatever. But this year, the new principal is like, I mean, I've never talked about fire drills so much in my 18-year career, but they're coming in and they're talking about what stairwell you're using, and they're intentionally saying like, go out this way to make it more efficient. And I think in all that time, it was so clogged because nobody was holding anybody accountable. So it comes back to accountability, whether it's for, you know, sharps in this or fire drills. So it just, that's what I was thinking of before. And like having the sharps box next to the bed seems so obvious, but if you're not checking on people, then how are you gonna know if it's there? So that was that read. And then this one, what really stood out to me, a few things, but that Anna spent more time with the client and writing activities, and she got quick feedback versus I hadn't really considered how long it took Harold the first time to give the feedback. But Anna spent more time actually speaking to the client and just how meaningful that is. So, and effective. I am complete, and I'll pass to, I don't know who had their hand raised first.
You can pass it to Shayla.
Okay, Shayla, I'll pass to Shayla.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree. I feel like getting out of the Tina mindset is pretty challenging. And actually, when I started the course, I said that one of my strengths was asking questions and being able to ask the right questions and, you know, elicit different points of view through questioning. And I think I've realized that while I do have a foundation there, that I still have a lot to learn, especially when I'm applying that to a different situation. And the takeaway from the reading is that targeting your training to specific people can impact the outcomes that you get. I am complete. I will pass it to Lovely.
My takeaway is that don't rush into the production step. It's always a better idea to spend some time into analysis. And I'll relate it to the first activity. I think Tina, you know, we talk about skill or will issue. I think Tina was more like it's a skill issue, and that's why she created a lot of trainings. She didn't really understood what kind of issue it is, but Anna, I think she really understood, like BEM talks about stimulus. So Anna was like, let's give them feedback and a lot of questions and stories and branching scenarios and all those things. So Anna actually considered that it's not really a skill, but maybe it's a stimulus issue. So the takeaway is really that if you are doing a bad analysis, you're not just wasting time. A lot of things goes into training. Like just imagine if I have a ILT, time money is spent in arranging the setup and the workshops. So it's always a great idea that you consider learners' time and the company's money into consideration as an idea. I'm complete, and I'll pass it to Zena.
If you could pass it back to me, because we have to give Team Natalie their time to present, and we'll come back and then we'll have some time for you at the end. Okay, so Team Natalie and Wenji. So let's see if you all can start your presentation. I know Matthew's not here.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you just give me a physical thumbs up if you could see my slides? All right, great, thank you. So today we're going to be talking about some of the challenges in Riverside Charter School and some of the proposed strategies my team and I actually came up with. So this is our team. Sorry, stole your pictures from Slack. But Matthew is the team lead. Unfortunately, he is currently suffering from pneumonia. He was coughing all night, so he can't be here with us. But we also have Lindsay as our assistant team lead and myself as team member. So we're going to cover just 5 different things. First, we're going to look at the problems and the root causes, and we're going to provide 3 different solutions. And then we'll have a question and answer, if there are any questions. So these are the 3 problems that we have identified that are facing Riverside Charter School. And overall, there are like a lot of problems, but our team actually targeted problems where, when solved, will have the highest impact. And we adopted this 80-20 rule, which is also called the Pareto's ratio. The first problem is high teacher turnover. 30% of teachers are leaving each year, and they cite burnout, poor structural support. The second big problem that is facing the school is behavior management. I don't want to type misbehavior because children are children, but managing the behavior does take time for teachers, and there doesn't seem to be a consistent behavior management policy across the school. And the third problem is parent engagement. The data actually reveals that there is a low engagement of parents, and we want to solve that, because when we know that when parents are involved in the children's education, results actually do improve. All right, so for the first problem, our proposed solution is actually structures for professional development. On the right-hand side over there, under the underlined heading called solution, I just wanted to bring your attention to the word systems approach, because this is the thing that we want to kind of suggest. It sounds like very overwhelming because we realize that teachers are burnt out because of the lack of skills to adapt to the new curriculum or a lack of exposure to best classroom practices. So we wanted to provide teachers with that professional development and ongoing support so that they can adapt to new curriculum, because we also know that teachers who are very well versed in instructional design, who can adapt, will make any curriculum work regardless of changes. So again, we need to start with perhaps a staff conference in the beginning of the year, kind of like stating exactly what the whole year will look like. Plus, we need monthly professional development, because we know that skills take time to build. Teaching them like once or having training once will not change anyone's life, right? We do need constant practice. It's like riding a bike. The more you practice, the better you get. Same with teaching. So monthly professional development. And we also wanted to create professional learning circles where weekly teachers in the same department will come together, work together, and kind of follow that blueprint that was set out in the staff conference in the beginning of the year, so that they know what to work on. So I think a lot of schools are doing this right now, but we don't see it happening in Riverside Charter School. So I think the biggest source of stress for any teacher is not knowing what to teach this year and not knowing whether what you're doing is in line with the syllabus. So we want to rule that out. We want to remove that source of stress from teachers, and hopefully having professional learning circles and a blueprint set out in the beginning of the year that will help them. And we also wanted to suggest mentor teachers, instructional coaches. Budget might be a problem, so maybe mentor teachers, just having that support in school will help them. So this is the whole system that we wanted to use. The second one is behavior management problem. The root cause is actually lack of accountability from the assistant superintendent for student performance and behavior. We also know that student performance is directly correlated with low incidence of student misbehavior. Again, not misbehavior, but misbehavior. Let's just call a spade a spade. So the solution here is a trickle-down effect kind of solution, where if we target the root, like if we start on the top, and have superintendent keep assistant superintendent accountable, everything else will just kind of fall in place. Of course, it needs to be ongoing. I think Misha's group actually talked about the performance improvement plan, but what's really interesting about this is that the performance improvement plan, if it works, it will actually provide a framework for this superintendent to manage this assistant superintendent moving forward. So it's a long-term approach. Now, if it doesn't work, that means assistant superintendent is not good for the job. And what we can also provide is a job aid for HR to identify the next good candidate. I'll pass my time to Wensi.
Okay, I'm going to see the last one very quickly. So for this part, we checked the data and also the surveys, then find out the current monthly newsletter only has a 50% open rate. And also the survey showed that the parents, they prefer some personalized communication, like directly phone call or email through teachers. So after asking some whys, we figure out so the kind of the root cause of this problem is lack of delicate parent platform and expectations for direct contact with parents in the district. So we figure out there, according to the 80-20 rule, there is a very easy solution for this situation. We
All
just
right, Wenji, we have to stop.
Okay, I'm complete.
All right. Thank you. So team, good practice in presenting. So in interviews, you may be given time and you have to manage that time in terms of what you're communicating. So this is a good situation to identify, all right, how do we be efficient in our presentations? Now, just quick takeaways from everything that you've seen today, and want to hear from Mary and then Shayla. So Mary, what's a takeaway from what you've heard from today?
Overall, in what I've heard from the review of the readings was the effect of Tina versus Anna on the ROI. So Anna's plan had a much better effect on the ROI for the hospital. And she chose the right tools for the right job. So she didn't go just in there and say, I'm going to redo something, you know, update current resources. She really dug down. And there was also some accountability there on Harold's part to make sure that not only were people learning and understanding what they were supposed to be doing, but that they were actually doing it. So there was follow through in that process. And she also did things in chunks. So she had iterations to change things as she went. So as she approached the end of her project, there was less to fix. And then in terms of the presentations so far today, there was a lot of talk. I think there was a lot of similarity in our top solutions and using the highest impacts and talking about accountability. I will say what I heard a little bit about skill versus will, but I think in some cases there were still some questions like what if that doesn't work? So I'm complete. I'll pass it to Shayla.
All right. Well, hold on, Madeline. While Shayla is sharing, if everyone can answer that question as well. So what are your takeaways? And you can speak to one takeaway since you're just writing, okay? So one major takeaway from today's session and what you've heard and what you've experienced, and also your checkout number. And Shayla, will pass it to you.
Hi, I would actually love to ask an open question just to sort of check my own understanding. Is that possible, or shall I share a takeaway?
Definitely.
Okay, so I had a bit of a debate with my team last night about when to use a performance improvement plan. And I guess my question is to anyone, would you implement a PIP before or after you would try and support in another way or give a supportive resource? Would a PIP be
I can answer that question for you. So it's really based on the organization. So the organization's HR department should have policies on how many times they will have corrective conversations with you. And that final corrective conversation will be a performance improvement plan of some sort. But it could be 2, it could be 3. So for example, here at 24/7 Teach, it's 3. So we have a 3-strike rule. So that third strike would be would be a PIP, where the first 2 would be more of a corrective conversation where we're speaking to, okay, here are the expectations. But it is based on the organization.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing is that you would use a PIP as a corrective measure, and it would be more through the organization, maybe following directives from an ID support.
Yes. And a PIP is a final corrective action. So it's the documented process that you are showing both to the organization as well as to the particular person that they are not meeting the requirements, and you're giving them an opportunity to meet those requirements. And it's really creating a paper trail so that you can remove someone from their position without any legal recourse.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And Shelly, do you have a takeaway from today?
Yeah, my main takeaway is that targeted solutions will create more relevant impact for the right people.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So I'm going to share something really quick and then we'll close out. I'm going to share my screen and I really want you to pay attention to this. Okay. All right. Can you give me a physical thumbs up if you're able to see my screen? Okay. What you are doing is actually the ADDIE process. So the past 3.5 weeks, we've been in analysis. Now in reading with action mapping in terms of Tina versus Anna, you're identifying strategies to move from analysis to design, where you are identifying, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to structure it? Okay, so if you're thinking about how does that ADDIE practice, like what does it look like? What does it feel like? It's not just having meetings and we're just going to talk about, let's go through this process. You are experiencing it right now with Riverside Charter School. Okay, so the lessons that you've taken away from how Anna has approached her training development or her course of action to solve the problem for the school, this is it. This is ADDIE. All right. And she's implementing the ADDIE model through using action mapping. Okay. So we are going to continue with this project because we're going to solve this school's problem. Okay. Now, believe it or not, this is a real school. It's just not called Riverside, but this is a real school. Okay. So we're going to come together and we're going to continue by going through the ADDIE process to solve this problem. All right. All right. So team, thank you. And just have a great weekend. And if you do have questions, feel free to stay behind, or if you have any comments, definitely feel free to share them. Okay. And have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye, everyone.
All right, Zaina, can you hop back on?
You log off, log on?
Mhm.